Hello, everyone, and welcome to the inaugural episode of the Mick On The Mic podcast, hosted by myself, Mick Walker, and in part with the Buckeye Scoop podcasting networks, where you can also find great shows such as Scoop World Order, The Morning Scoop, and Gives in the Bank. In case you guys don't know who I am Mick Walker. I mainly do a lot of the Ohio State basketball and wrestling recruiting coverage over at Buckeye Scoop, in part with also pitching in on the football side of things whenever something comes my way or whenever somebody else whenever help is needed on a certain topic. I want to kick off this podcast, just sort of give you guys a third insight. I know we have two great recruiting podcasts already with Alex Leitman's Around the Oval, where he'll bring on recruits, people of interest related to Ohio State, a lot of just cool insights for you guys to hear and talk to and hear from. Then we also have the Gives in the Bank podcast, where you get to hear all sorts of different nuggets, different scoops, different informations, different evaluations from Mark Givler and Bill Bank-Green, who are two of the best, if not the best guys on the Ohio State recruiting scene. This podcast right here, Mick on the Mic, will be primarily centered around giving you guys insights from these players, getting to hear from them, which I think you guys love to do, just getting to hear from these guys and getting to know them more before they even come on a campus. And hopefully those will all coincide with getting somebody on with a lot of knowledge of either the recruit or the position that the recruit plays. So you guys have more informed opinions and informed evaluations before these guys even step on campus. For instance, we're going to have Kyle McCord on here next week. And Kyle's going to, after Kyle comes on, talks about his recruitment, how everything's going for him, what his goals are for the season if Pennsylvania has one, and then obviously his plans to early enroll. After we have Kyle on, we're going to bring on Quincy Avery, who saw Kyle at the Elite 11 earlier this summer and is also the trainer for the guys like CJ Stroud, Justin Fields, and Dwayne Haskins, who may or may not be Ohio State, who are two of which are already former Ohio State starting quarterbacks. And CJ Stroud is looking like he could be the next in line after Justin Fields heads to the NFL. After that, we're hoping to have another great series, which Kyle kicks off in a way, but since he's the only person in his position room, it's just him. But we're hoping to do an In the Meeting Room series where you guys get to hear insights from Evan Pryor and Travion Henderson to start with me in between, and we'll sort of get you guys a rapid fire roundtable environment with that, and then continue with the receiving positions such as wide receiver and tight end. We'll combine and we'll bring on Marvin Harrison Jr. with Jaden Ballard and Sam Hart. Following that, we'll have our guy Zach Smith on the podcast, and he'll give you his insight on those three guys and what Ohio State's getting, what Ohio State already has in the program, and different stuff like that. As for other things we have coming forward, I have a ton of great insights. I want to bring on guys like Anthony Rouse, who's the recruiting coordinator over at Ohio State's wrestling program, and talk about guys like Patty Gallagher, Andre Gonzalez, who will be on the show here in a little bit. But since those guys are not signed and not officially enrolled at Ohio State yet, they can't comment on either of those guys. So that's why Ralph won't be on until likely when those guys ink their letter of intent. Maybe we'll have them on later here this month, but they'll definitely be on after they ink their letter of intent. We'll also have guys like Ryan Peden on this podcast, so he'll get to come on and talk about this great Ohio State recruiting class they're putting forward in 2021 with guys like Malachi Branham, Michi Johnson, Kalen Etzler, three Ohio studs that Ohio State's very glad to be having in this class, and all three of them will be on. Hopefully, eventually, too, on the podcast, we can get all three of those guys on. As for what we're going to talk about today, I want to touch on, obviously, the Big Ten closing down their season, even though you can probably head over to Buckeye Scoop and get a lot better informed opinions from guys like Tony Gerdeman, Tom Orr, Mark Givler, and even Bill. Bill will give you some great insights on our forums as well. But since it's the hot button topic, I want to give you guys my take on it. I spoke to an SEC coach and an ACC coach, and both of them sort of just reiterated the idea that it's a lot like where the basketball season was in the spring, where one domino fell and now the rest are looking. I mean, they're holding out hope to not fall, but it's just hard to see. It's just hard to see football being played this fall, and that's a sad thing for me to be here to say, and I know it's going to be a sad thing for you guys to hear, but that's the fact of the matter. And got program conferences like the SEC are not going to roll out teams like Alabama, LSU, Florida, Georgia, just to play themselves and then play and win, I guess, a conference championship, which would sort of be an equivalent of an SEC, a national championship. And with all the stuff that's going on over at Syracuse, going over on at Pitt, different ACC programs, Florida State with their lax testing program. That's really putting the ACC in jeopardy, and I think that's why you're going to see them probably likely be the next to shut down, which then takes Clemson out of the race and really leaves nobody for the SEC to play besides the Big 12 with programs like Texas and Oklahoma, who, yes, are national title contenders in their own right. But as we saw last year with Oklahoma versus LSU, then Oklahoma versus Alabama, they can come out and they can put up points, but they're not going to have anywhere near the defense to sort of stop the other powerful programs. And that's why it just doesn't make very much sense for anybody to play. As I sit and record this, the news of Jack Sawyer opting out of his senior season just came out, and Mark's done an amazing job covering all that. So I'm not really going to get into much of it. I just want to let you guys sort of know what's going on and what in my head to see that it took me about 10 minutes to sit here and realize and think about it before I wanted to get on the mic and talk to you guys about everything, because Jack's a guy I've gotten close to. Jack's a guy that we were hoping to do a cool series with. We'll still see if we can work on that, but now without a senior season, I don't know if we'll be able to get to it. I feel for a guy like Jack that took it into his own hands and knows that it was probably his best business decision to sit out. But ultimately, that's what it is. There's a guy of his caliber, his talent, his level. You make business decisions. You don't make personal decisions. It's nothing against the Pickerington North program. There's nothing against the city of Pickerington. Jack loves those. Jack loves both those things with his whole heart. But he also knows that this is his future. This is not just a temporary thing. And that's why you see him electing to sit out. That's really my 2 cents on both those topics. Now we're gonna head it off with we're gonna have a short little ad play before we get to an interview with Ohio State's most recent 2021 wrestling commitment, Andre Gonzalez, who projects to be a 125, 133 pounder at Ohio State in the wrestling program. He talked about his state championship run, why he chose Ohio State, winning Fargo like he did last summer, and really just everything that I think Ohio State wrestling fans will want to know. Without further ado, let's pass it on over to myself and Andre Gonzalez from an interview we pre-recorded. All right, we got our first guest on the Mick On The Mic podcast, recent Ohio State 2021 wrestling commit, Andre Gonzalez from Poway High School in California. Hopefully I said that right. Andre, how are you doing today, and what's it been like during all this quarantine for you?
I'm doing pretty good. It's been pretty weird, with everything in life, whether that goes for training, school, this whole commitment process. It's just been weird having to adjust to it, but I think I've done pretty well adjusting to it. I have a lot of support, and yeah.
So why now? I'll be truthful. The day before you committed, I was told reach out to Andre Gonzalez. He might be a guy you should talk to. And I think if we go back and check, I sent you a message the night before you committed. But why was Ohio State the place for you, and why'd you do it this past week?
Well, I really wanted to make my decision before school started, and at that time I didn't really know when school was gonna start. So like mid-August, beginning of September. Now it's beginning of September, so I want to get it done before school. And I had some offers from other schools that were on the table, and I wanted to make sure that I would, decide, so I wasn't holding them back, waiting for Ohio State to offer. So I gave Ohio State a deadline to offer me August 1st. So they offered me, and I just, I really felt good about that school. They're super successful, in everything they do, academically, wrestling, all sports. And Coach Tom Ryan, just a huge part of it. I was really interested in Coach Tom Ryan. His philosophy, I really enjoyed what he had to say, and I felt like me and him are going to work really good together as a team.
I mean, you're coming all the way across country, and you never actually got the chance to visit Columbus and step foot on campus. What is it? Just Coach Ryan? Was it just Ohio State itself that made you comfortable in doing that?
Yeah, well, obviously Ohio State's an amazing campus. I did a virtual tour of it, but I was just talking to people I know, that had been there, and they said it's just an amazing campus, amazing facilities, and yeah, I would say it was just Coach Tom Ryan. Everything that they said to me, I really, that was like my goal. I know. They were like, you want to be an NCAA champ, you want to be a world champ, you want to come here. I was like, I want to do that, so I want to go there.
Yeah, and one thing you can probably expand on this, but I know one thing that really skyrocketed everything in your process was last summer when you were able to win double Fargo championships in both Greco-Roman and freestyle. What was that? How did that feel to win both those? Because there's some guys that never even get the chance to wrestle there. How did it feel to win double in the same year?
It was a pretty crazy feeling. Uh, it's kind of indescribable with words because it was just like so sudden. I wasn't really expecting it. Like I was going there to win, but the year before I'd win, like 1 and 2, just in freestyle. I didn't even wrestle Greco. And then I was having a really good freestyle Greco year. I was undefeated going to Fargo. I'd won everything. I went 15-0 in junior duels. So it was exciting to win that. I was just kind of like surprised. I guess I did that. I dominated the tournament. I felt like, in both styles. I wasn't even at the beginning. I wasn't expecting to go down again for Greco to 106, but I ended up just making the cut, and I made weight, and it was pretty crazy. It was a crazy experience, and I really enjoyed it.
You followed that up this school year by coming out, and luckily you guys got to fit it in. You won a state title this year. How cool was that to you? Because I know Fargo's one thing, but to win it in your state, your area, how cool was that for you?
Yeah, it was super cool. I sometimes I like to say the state was a little more heartwarming than Fargo because I had my whole town there of Poway, and just everyone was there that I know. Both my parents, my sisters, all my friends and family were there to watch me. So I thought that was pretty cool. I really enjoyed that. Looking up into the crowd and seeing everybody I knew, rather than Fargo just looking at some random people.
And I mean, you mentioned your high school program there. It's a very tradition-rich program in the state of California when it comes to wrestling. How cool did it feel to really sort of make your notch and put your mark on being a part of that tradition and that deep, rich program that they have down there?
Yeah, it felt awesome. I really like. I've been with that program since I first started wrestling. I've never went anywhere else. Just Poway homegrown. My coach, he just started. Coach Brandsetter was a coach previously. He was a coach for a long time. Very successful coach. He'll go down as one of the greats. And having the new coach, he's been my coach throughout my entire middle school career. Every up until high school, he was my coach, and to have him come in as a head coach and then be his first state champion and ingrain myself in the Poway history is pretty crazy.
And I mean, you did it this past season at 106. What are you walking around at right now? I know you're ranked at 113. What are you walking around at? What's the plan for this coming season if we get it off?
So I'm walking around like 140, 135 between there. So we're looking at probably 126, especially because the season got moved to our season's from March to June. State championships are June like 10th or something. So we were planning on 120, but since it got moved back, I'm gonna keep getting bigger and hit 126 this year.
Is if we would have had a typical spring and summer where we have the different nationals and the Fargo and stuff like that, what was your plan on wrestling those? What were you hoping to do?
So I was planning to repeat the exact same thing the next year. Just at a bigger weight. I was gonna go 113, and I was expecting to wrestle everyone. I wanted to wrestle everyone. I want to wrestle everyone at the top at 113 this summer. That was my plan. I just wanted to go beat everyone at 113 and then win double Fargo titles again. That was the plan.
How much attention do you pay to rankings where they say like you're the fourth best guy at 113 or you're XYZ guy at 113? How much do you pay attention to that?
I mean, the way I like to think about rankings is, you're always going to strive to be number one. Everybody wants to be number one in the rankings. But I mean, I look at them, but it never affects me going into a match that I'm wrestling the top five guys. I mean, I'm just trying to strive to be number one, but they're not affecting my wrestling. I'm just there to wrestle whoever, and I want to beat the best.
Okay. And I want to give you the opportunity to answer one thing because anytime I mention your name to people around the wrestling program, they say he's really good, he's really talented, but he might not be able to ever get to that 125, be solid at that weight class. Do you fully intend to be able to guy that sustains a 125, 133 weight in college and be successful there?
Oh, definitely. I'm going to Ohio State to wrestle 125, 133, and to, win NCAA titles for them. I think I'm gonna be able to adjust fine. I've been wrestling bigger guys my whole life in the room, so I don't think it's gonna be too big of an adjustment. I just need to get in the weight room, get as big as possible, and compete with everybody at that weight. I don't think people can downplay me at that weight. I think I'll prove myself this year and in college.
So obviously state title's the goal this year. Is that what the plan is?
Yep, state title.
And I mentioned it to you before. We talked about it a little bit. If you go 126 like you're planning, and another big Ohio State target named Richard Figueroa goes 126, there's a potential that you guys match up in a state final match right there. Have you guys
Yeah,
ever been able to wrestle each other or go competitive at all?
we have never wrestled each other. No.
How is that a match like just wrestling a guy like that of his? I mean, is his stature and nature? Is that something that seems really interesting to you? Something that you'd be all in for?
Yeah, I've been looking forward to wrestling him for a while. He's a really good competitor. Took second at Worlds. Makes World Team every year. And I'm really excited to wrestle him if I get to wrestle him this year. I think it'd be a great match. I had a close match with the number 2 kid at 113 this year. Lost to him by a point at Reno, and he had close matches with him as well. I'm excited to wrestle with those bigger guys. He's probably one of the best wrestlers in the country right now, if not the best wrestler in the country. So I really want to match myself up with those guys. If I wrestle in the state title, that'd be sweet.
I know when I talked to both you and him, you guys said that you had never really been able to talk much. But how cool would that be able to be if you were able to guys both go to Ohio State and be in the same room together and train with each other for 4 years? How awesome would that be for you and also him?
That would be crazy. I think that honestly, us either 125, 133, whatever we end up going if he goes to Ohio State would be, the deadliest to 1-2 punch in college, man. We'd be tough. And us training together would be real good. We'd both be definitely in the top 5 in the country every year if we went to Ohio State together.
I know I asked you after you committed. I didn't know. I don't know if it's changed, but have you been able to talk to Patty at all post commitment and just see how he's like talking to him about Ohio State?
I haven't really, I haven't really talked to that many people, from Ohio State yet or Patty Gallagher at all. But yeah, I'd really like to, either reach out to them or them reach out to me. It'd be cool.
Okay, and I mean, you mentioned it earlier. Ohio State, not outside of from wrestling, has a great, obviously, academic stature, and everything about the university is great. What's your plan for academically majoring in? What do you want to do post wrestling? Because the career is obviously you can be short lived. It depends all on how the future lays out for you.
So I was thinking either some sort of engineering, mostly focusing on either computer science engineering or civil structural engineering.
Okay. And then obviously while you're at Ohio State, the plan is to still continue to wrestle the Olympic styles and hopefully eventually continue to try and make world teams, junior teams, all that sort of stuff.
hmm
All right.
Yeah, for surely.
All right. Thank you, Andre. And then that's all I really got for you, man.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
I hope you all enjoyed the interview with Andre. I think he's a great kid. He's a great wrestler. He's going to be a great person at Ohio State. That's going to have a great impact on the program. As we talked about earlier, we're going to be back next week, hopefully doing that. Hopefully getting into the routine of having this twice a week, have a recruit on each week, and then also have a different insight about that recruiter, about that position that the recruit plays. As we talked about, Kyle McCord is going to be the next guest, and then Quincy Avery is going to follow back with him. Then we're going to have Evan Pryor and Travion Henderson on at the same time, sort of a roundtable environment. And then hopefully have Rashad Whitfield on later. And he'll you guys don't probably know that name, but he goes by the Footwork King. Obviously has worked with guys like Kendall Sheffield at Ohio State, Trey Sermon, but more known for working with guys like OBJ, different world-renowned athletes. And he's going to bring some great insight when it comes to just the running back position, what Trey Sermon is, and then hopefully we get him to see some Evan Pryor and Travion Henderson film, and he'll give us some thoughts on those two cats before they come into Ohio State. After that, we'll touch on the wide receiver position. But from there, like I said, we're hoping to have some great guests on. I hope you guys really enjoyed this first episode. I know it wasn't anything too long. Just want to get this out, get you guys listen to my voice, getting you guys hearing what I'm saying. And we'll be back next week. In the meantime, go ahead. I got a chat up and on the Buckeye Scoop forums if you guys want to jump in, ask any questions, talk to me about anything. Hoping to be a lot more active on the Buckeye Scoop forums now that I'm down to running for one website. Definitely want to be more active when it comes to the podcasting because I think it's going to work a lot better with my school schedule once we start up here in August. Once again, thank you guys for listening, and I hope to hear you guys back. Hope you guys can be back and listen to me next week.